What's up, everyone? Baldur's Gate 3 came out recently, and apparently everyone on my Steam's friend list and myself have been snorting it like cocaine. I've absolutely fallen in love with how Larian Studios has captured not only the mechanics of D&D, but really the feeling of it as well. They did have to change some things because unlike tabletop D&D, Baldur's Gate is a video game and has to make some decisions that work better for video games over tabletop. That said, some of the decisions Larian went with had me scratching the old dome, thinking, how would that play at the table? Today, we're going to be exploring some mechanics and ideas you can borrow from Baldur's Gate 3 to enhance your D&D campaign. Now, remember, BG3 is a video game, and every change Larian made to 5e was designed to make playing a video game feel better. That means not all the changes they made, even the ones that feel great, will work at the table. So for each of these, we're going to compare the cost versus the benefit to adding them into your game. Let's dive in. More to do with your bonus actions. Bonus actions in D&D, especially at early levels, can feel pretty useless depending on your class. The main ones in 5e are make an offhand attack, cast a spell, and use a class feature. One of the things I love about Baldur's Gate 3 is how many new options you get for your bonus action. One common one that already sees a lot of play with house rulings is drinking a potion as a bonus action. I've personally been using this one for a long time since it really sucks to use a potion as your entire turn. Giving a potion to another player, however, is still an action, and that kind of balances it out since you can get up a downed player that way. Dipping your weapon in a substance is now also a bonus action. This adds so much flavor to classes like assassins that want to dip their weapons in poison. It's such a wonderful visual to see a rogue coating their weapon in a deadly green, sizzling mix of viscous fluid right before jamming it in an unsuspecting foe's neck. Right now, I feel like weapon coating is pretty underused in D&D. The next one is shoving. The shove action in 5e counts as a melee attack, so martial characters with multiple attacks can do it multiple times per turn. This makes sense since they're most likely to be in the front line and are close enough to enemies to do this. That said, I don't think it's broken to allow it to be used as a bonus action since the likelihood to succeed is still based on a contested athletics check, and it could result in some fun, unique situations where the cleric manages to chuck a wolf off a cliff or something. As a side note, I also want to play with the distance you can shove a creature based on your strength, like in BG3. Right now, when you shove a creature in D&D 5e, you only push them 5 feet away or shove them down. I'd love it if you could increase the distance by 5 feet for every +1 you add to strength or something. That would be kind of sick. Could be crazy, but it could be sick. That actually brings me to the next one. Elevation. Falling damage is actually scary. Well, elevation is a thing in D&D 5e. I think playing Baldur's Gate 3 has shown me just how important and impactful it can be on a battle, and how just freaking fun it is. Not only can you just shove or toss enemies off a cliff, you get range bonuses from being on the high ground. Positioning in D&D gains so much when you have things like cover and elevation in the mix, and adding some bonuses and negatives to where you are positioned can really improve the tactical depth of your game. Already, D&D gives you a bonus to your AC based on your cover. I think you could add a bonus to hit based on the high ground. I don't think you need to do the same for the low ground. You could just say that shooting from the low ground to the high ground offers the defender half cover, which is a +2 to AC, but you could give the high ground shooter a +2 to hit as a direct comparison, which could be a fun way to do it. And I am actually about to start a physical D&D game for the first time in a long time, and am definitely going to add elevation as a key feature to my battle maps. Speaking of the new campaign, I just finished up an old campaign that was a 3-year-long, 80-session plus Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign. I'll have a video of that coming up next week, so if you want to check that out, feel free to subscribe, maybe drop a like. You can check it out when it comes out. So the main issue I think with people bringing elevation into their D&D games is it's hard to visualize in 2D, but it's not impossible. If you're running on Foundry or Roll20, you can add some text to maps saying like this cliff is 30 feet up or this pit goes 20 feet down, and you can achieve much the same result. I'm excited to play physically so I can have the visual difference, but you can absolutely do this when you're running on a VTT. Number 3, group initiative. When multiple allied characters in Baldur's Gate 3 go in a sequence and initiative, they can all act at the same time, swapping between characters until they all end their turns. Both the DM and players can benefit from this if implemented into 5e. I think this change has the potential to have the most impact on your combat, so let's take a look at what this could do. If multiple PCs are going at the same time, this allows them to set up sneak attack and flanking attacks on opponents a lot easier, as well as provoke opportunity attacks initially just to get in the right position for combos. In essence, this is a big buff for your party. That said, how cool is that? I want my players synergizing in combat. It's like that scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 where all the Guardians are fighting in the hallway, working with each other, they're flipping all over each other. It's just, everyone's being a total badass all together, and that's my freaking jam. If group initiative can help us get there, I'm gonna try it. And remember, this gives the DM a buff as well, because now your monsters can set up flanking attacks and stuff, and that kind of balances itself out. In order to do this well, I think you need a public initiative system so everyone can plan and visualize the turn order. Online virtual tabletops like Roll20 and Foundry already do this, and I don't think it's that hard to do this IRL if you just fold up pieces of paper, write names on them, put them on the top of your DM screen, and move them to the end when they've gone, that sort of thing. Gets everybody to kind of see what's going on. I just think this change could be pretty awesome. One warning, though, that I thought of when considering implementing this is you want to be careful about people quarterbacking. You don't want one player to tell the other players, okay, we're all going together, so you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. You want them collaborating. If you find that happening, try to encourage them to say, here's what I want to happen. How can you guys help me get there? How can we achieve it together? Rather than one player telling everybody what to do, everyone's kind of working towards a goal. I think that might help you if you run into that issue where one player tries to quarterback the situation. Number 4, preparing spells at any time. This is one I may get heat for, but I love the fact that you can prepare spells at any time out of combat. I feel like the prepared spell system, while maybe intended to help casters with access to their whole spell library, limit the decision space for them while in combat, functionally, this makes it so most spells just don't get used. For instance, I'm playing a cleric in my friend's campaign, and there are just some spells that I always have prepared. Things like Spirit Guardians, Guiding Bolt, Healing Word, like those boxes never get unchecked. But if I knew we were about to fight some single entity bad guy, and Spirit Guardians won't be very useful here, and that bad guy's right by the water, I could choose to prepare Control Water instead and lead to an awesome moment. Here's how I think prepared spells should work. Say a cleric has 8 spells that they can prepare, and their spell list has like 60 spells in it. I'd say that they can use any of those 60 spells, but when they cast a spell during the day, they have to mark it as prepared, so now they only have 7 more choices of spells during that day. This borrows an idea from another RPG, but when I was writing the script, I was blanking on the exact one and I couldn't find it for some reason, so if you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. But essentially, the idea in that system is you don't have items in your inventory until you choose to use them. Like, you mark them, oh, I have rope, so I'm marking it, now I have rope, that's one of my slots. Now, I probably wouldn't go that far for D&D in terms of the inventory system, but I do like that idea for a system in terms of spells, because instead of having the same objectively best 8 spells prepared all the time, you can have a bunch of different things prepared for different situations. I think this idea lets casters have more fun with situations and not just always pick the most efficient things through the day. I think that also makes playing support casters a lot more fun and engaging, because you're not always being like, well, I have to have my support spells here. I always have to have Bless. I always have to have Healing Word. I always have to have Cure Wounds. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And, as the day comes on, you're like, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do Control Water. So I think that'd be fun. Number 5, let anyone use spell scrolls. There used to be a skill in D&D, I think last seen in 3.5, that was called Use Magic Device. Now I think it's been supplanted by Arcana. As long as you were trained in this skill, it allowed you to attempt to cast a spell from a scroll, regardless if it was from your spell list or not. The DC to do this was pretty high, something like 20 plus the spell level, but in 3.5 you had way more skill points than 5th edition does, so it's easier to do this than it seems on the surface. I'm not sure I'm going to use this in my own D&D campaign, but if you like the idea of your wild magic barbarian using a scroll of Call Lightning, I'm not going to stop you. This is definitely the most rule of cool thing you could add to your game. Right now in 5e, the spell scroll is only usable if it is castable by your class, requiring an ability check using your class's spellcasting modifier if it's a higher level than you can currently cast. If you want to use this system to allow other classes to cast the spell, just stretch that roll to anyone and then have them use a relevant mental stat, or simply Arcana if they're proficient, to attempt to cast it. The DC is going to be 10 plus the spell's level. Again, this is a very rule of cool thing to do, and so only use it if you think it sounds dope to you. Number 6, unique weapon attacks. I think it's really cool that the weapons in Baldur's Gate each have their own unique attacks that makes them feel like different experiences. Warhammers and maces can use a concussive smash, which can daze your enemy, which gives them disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, they can take reactions, and they lose the dex bonus to their armor class. And if you're using a rapier or a scimitar, you can flourish, which means you can throw off the enemy's balance, and they have disadvantage on strength and dex checks, and attack rolls against them have advantage. These unique attacks do add a bit of extra mental load in terms of conditions to D&D, but let's be honest, we're all double checking what the poison condition does and the difference between grappled and restrained, so you might as well have a cheat sheet next to you anyway if you want to put these in your game. Number 7, elemental arrows and terrain. One of the coolest items in Baldur's Gate 3 is actually a holdover from Larian Studios' Divinity Original Sin series, the elemental arrows. This pairs really well with their terrain type system, where things like water, grease, ice, fire, on the ground all have an impact on how your characters move through the space. Having consumable elemental arrows can really add a cool layer of tactical depth to your archers' playstyles, even allowing them to play support, hitting your allies with arrows that cure conditions, and enemies with arrows that silence them. Number 8, cutting out the attunement system. Baldur's Gate 3 removes the attunement system of D&D with a more traditional RPG system of armor slots. Personally, I've always been more a fan of the armor slot system over attunement slots, but you can't argue that this change could have the potential biggest impact on your PC's balance, especially if your campaign is pretty free with magic items. On top of that, you're gonna get a player arguing that they should be allowed 10 ring slots since they have 10 fingers, or 20 because they've got 10 toes also. So if you're worried about that, don't go in this direction. But removing the attunement system will put more work on the DM, because they've got to balance stuff, maybe debuff certain items that require attunement if you remove the attunement system. So if you're up for the challenge, this could mean your players have a lot more options in combat, which of course means you can throw even nastier shit at them. Win-win. Thanks so much for watching, and since you made it this far in the video, here's some bonus things to steal as a reward. Number 9, recovery from being down leaves you with only half movement and a bonus action. This is a great way to balance the yo-yo effect of getting players back up in your game, and I think it could be a solid balance change. It is a pretty big debuff to your players though, so definitely run it by them before you add it in. Number 10, everyone in Baldur's Gate 3 is horny all the time. As somebody who likes to flirt with my friends, I think this is a good idea. You could do it too. No one's stopping you. I ain't a cop. Number 11, quick saves. Want to run an encounter you're pretty sure is going to kill your party? Add a quick save system so they can reload and nope out right before getting their shit wrecked. Number 12, instant game overs. If your player wants to fuck around with a god or devil, then they're gonna find out. You should feel perfectly free to just demolish your party with a single spell, and if you do, I would refer you back to tip 11. Okay, so maybe you shouldn't add all the things I just said to your game, but it's your game, do what you want. I ain't snitching. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name is Ben DeHart. Now let's roll to see how well I stick the landing on this video. Oh shit.